Motorcycling is perfect for introverts. If you're new here, go ahead and subscribe. There's a lot of fun to be had over here, as the current subscribers can let you know. Today I wanted to discuss the fact that motorcycling is the perfect hobby for introverts. Now, if you're not caught up to speed on the terminology, according to introvertdear.com, an introvert is defined as someone who prefers calm, minimally stimulating environments. Introverts tend to feel drained after socializing and regain their energy by spending time alone. This is largely because introverts' brains respond to dopamine differently than extroverts' brains. This is different than just being shy or socially reclusive or quiet. I categorize myself as one of those people who is introverted and not necessarily quiet all the time. I can be quiet in a lot of social situations or larger group settings, but the volume of my voice can definitely be loud. So I don't think anyone's particularly called me shy before, but I think I have been called quiet before. So how does motorcycling play into all this? A lot of people see motorcyclists as these thrill-seeking, wild, adrenaline junkies who like a lot of attention. They have these loud, rambunctious, risky machines that they ride around town and cause all sorts of shenanigans.
But our shenanigans are cheeky and fun.
I like to argue the opposite with you today. Motorcycling honestly can be great for any type of personality. You just have to engage with it however you're most interested in. And today I wanted to talk about the ways that motorcycling caters well to introverts, both conversationally and experientially. So in terms of the way you can interact with other people as an introvert, and then also the way you can experience things without necessarily conversing or without doing something that could be pretty draining to you. One aspect of introversion is your ability to react to stimulus. If you've ever been listening to the radio and someone's on the phone and someone else is trying to have a conversation with you and you feel like your brain just can't process it all at once, that could be one indication that you are sensitive to stimulus. Stimulus takes a lot of forms. It takes the form of light, sound, taste, really anything that is stimulating. I am definitely fall under the category of a pretty sensitive person to stimulus. This doesn't necessarily mean that you're weak or wishy-washy or that you can't go out in public. It just means that certain things might affect you more than affects other people. I'm definitely more startled by sudden noises. Bar settings are oftentimes pretty draining because you're trying to have a conversation with somebody and you're trying to see in low light and there's all this noise and there's all these people and you're trying to absorb things. You sometimes notice things at a more intense frequency. I see that when I'm out with people, I take in the room a lot more than other people will. I'll recap with them afterwards and say, oh, did you see that piece of art on the wall? Or did you notice what this people at that other table were doing? And half the time, no one notices. And I think that plays into part of the reason why people and introverts can be highly sensitive is the fact that they often are just absorbing more. It's not necessarily that they can't absorb as much as other people. It's just that they can't really necessarily tune out as much as other people. So I don't want you to think that you can't function in society if you're more of an introvert. Sometimes it feels that way with the priorities of the Western world, that being loud or boisterous or extroverted or just really charismatic and out there is the only way to be. And there's a quiet charisma about a lot of people that you can dig out in more one-on-one environments. Anyways, all that introvert discussion aside, let's get into how specifically motorcycling and introversion go hand in hand in a really wonderful way. One aspect of this is conversation. At least for me, in my perspective on this type of thing, is I tend not to really like too much small talk about this and that and the weather and did you see that Packer game and oh, now I'm getting kind of Wisconsin. But what is fun to talk about, though, on kind of a superficial level or with multiple levels of engagement is your bike. So when you go to these outdoor events and meetups, you can actually hear one another when you talk to each other. So that's a great thing. It's a great way to socialize without having to scream over loud music or everyone's drinking and like you got to deal with all these weird social dynamics and faux pas and you can't tell people what their motives are when they're talking to you. But at a lot of these outdoor motorcycle meetups, the culture is relaxed. Your bike is often sitting there near you and it's a great conversation starter, and you can really jump into some fun topics just by standing near your bike. And there's such a variety of different kinds of bikes. If you go to an event where there's other people who enjoy the same kind of bike as you can talk to them about the similarities. If you're at something that's a custom event, you can see all the different ways that people express themselves with their bikes, or the different values they have in terms of like aesthetics and priorities on the way they look and the way they operate. It's cool to go to both events that have, like-minded bikers, maybe other Ducati. There's not really Ducati events very often in Milwaukee, but there's often like European bike nights or different types of things that'll cater to different crowds. So if you've got a Harley, you go to Harley meetups, but maybe you also go to some custom things where you'll see vintage Hondas or you'll see custom Triumphs. And it's a great way to talk to people and have a lot to talk about without having to delve into small talk about like, oh, nice event we got here. Do you come to these often? Like, you can actually get to the meat of a conversation and walk away either, with a new friend or having learned something new or just shooting the breeze and having a good time. Because of the bikes being this commonality why everybody's there's endless conversations. And then that can just be the first node to get you into a different thing that you both have in common, or even something else that you just like never heard of before. It's just this perfect like boom conversation topic so that you don't have to do so much excavating to get to something interesting. So you can talk about their bike, you can talk about your bike, you can talk about the event, you can talk about the motorcycle industry and all the different kind of drama or dynamics, or just like so many different aspects of the technological advances or the change in ownership of the companies, or really there's a whole lot to talk about just like overall from the industry standpoint. You can talk about travel, if you've ever gone long distance with your bike or if you intend to, the comfort level of that, or the cool routes that you could go, and any future moto plans that you have for customization or for travel or for other events. There's tons to talk about. And then mutual friends. You're almost always going to have other people who ride. I mean, it's like that with any kind of niche or hobby. You're like, oh, do you know these people? They also rock climb. And then maybe you do. So this is suddenly a little talk on how to be charismatic and start conversations with people. But sometimes that is an issue with introverts. Like, you often just like don't initiate because you don't really know what to talk about, or maybe there's nothing off the top of your head that you're thinking about that has to relate with that person. You might be kind of caught up in your own thoughts, but it's a really great gesture to engage with people, talk to them about their bike. And it's like, people talking about their kids and their dogs, but like a little bit less stressful. I think there's just so much conversation to be had when it comes to motorcycles. All right. And then another huge aspect of how motorcycling engages well with introversion is the experience of it. And I think this is what a lot of people will probably think about when they think about how motorcycling can be a solitary thing, it can be a deeply reflective thing, and therefore can really be introvert friendly. If you are at these events and you're not interested in making conversation with people, you can just look around at the bikes, be around people, and then not really talk to them at all, and then just go home. You can have a perfectly robust experience without really jumping into too much conversation. You could go to an event completely alone and it's not strange to do so, and you can leave on your own terms. You can go to things that you don't know anybody at, and you can have a great experience and not have to be with this big group of people in order to have fun. From like the tinkerer perspective of things, you can look at people's bikes and learn new things and get some inspiration for what you might want to do to your own bike, or just get new ideas and learn new things about custom bikes or even about gear. I know when I go out, I love seeing the way people dress on the bike, if they like to match their bike, if the way they dress matches their bike's personality and their personality. It's really fun to people watch at these types of things. And there's such a variety of people that you really will get some good people watching. And then even within the more homogenous groups, there's definitely a lot of flair and fringe to be had in reflective things. It's a fun kind of hobby for seeing the way people will get into it from like a costume kind of perspective. One cool thing too about going alone or not being too indebted to the fact that you feel pressured to like stay with a group or engage with people, since that's out the window, you can do your old-fashioned Irish goodbye. I'm a huge proponent of this, and I would even do this to people when I'm out at the bar with them. It would cause some concern. You usually have to follow up with a text message so everybody knows you're okay. But from my experience, the Irish goodbye is where you don't do any of the pleasantries, you don't go around to everybody you talk to or make any kind of grand exit. You don't say, oh, it was so great to see you. Hopefully I see you at the next thing. And then you get caught talking for another like 15 minutes. You just look around and leave. It's so nice. You save a lot of time. Heck, people are hungry for more. They're like, where did they go? And are they still here? Next time they see you, it's a pleasant surprise. So I love a good Irish goodbye. Socially, there's a lot less pressure to drink at motorcycle activities. Almost all the other kind of adult activities that you might partake in involve alcohol. You go out to the bar, maybe you go to a concert, maybe you go to a sports game. All of those are kind of, or very, alcohol focused or supplemented by alcohol. And if you want to find a community that is for a broad range of people and can be very communal but doesn't rely on alcohol as a backbone, granted, some people do drink at events and some do drink responsibly, but for the most part, like, motorcycles and alcohol don't mix. Unless you plan on leaving it there or you took a cab there or something else, there's really no pressure to drink when you go on the bike, and it's kind of my favorite excuse for not drinking. In Wisconsin, it honestly is kind of uncommon to choose not to drink, especially in kind of celebratory environments. So it's great when I go out to meet with people and I rode there, I can always say, sorry, I can't drink. I rode my bike here. And then that saves you money too. Alcohol isn't free. Another cool thing about this whole culture of motorcycling, especially in Wisconsin, is the fact that it's a very seasonal activity. It's like when kids go back to camp and they like see their camp friends again. There's so many people that you only see during part times of the year, and it's totally fine to be on that kind of a basis with them and not have to continually check in with people and maintain these relationships all year long. Obviously, if you're close with them, that's a nice thing to do, but it's perfect for those kind of friends that you really enjoy being around but don't have the time to be texting and calling and meeting up with all the time. It's so great to have these kind of seasonal friends, the kind of friends that you can just call up and say like, hey, you going for a ride? And then you go out and do it. And it's not this big maintenance thing. It's a really great way to spend quality time with people without having to do so much like work to keep the friendship going. On the basis of, if you do form really strong friendships with people in motorcycling, they tend to be really devoted people, especially if you get involved in like a motorcycle club. I'm not in a club, so I can't really talk about that kind of stuff. I've heard great things about people being in clubs that do volunteer work or just are social or enthusiast groups. Don't do like organized crime, if you ask me. It's a bit of an old stereotype about bikes. I mean, I'm in Milwaukee and I'm aware of some, but I think the vast majority of motorcycle groups are really positive groups to be a part of. And especially if you're lacking that kind of camaraderie later in life, I think a lot of people grapple with the fact that when you're younger, you often participate on sports teams or you're in classrooms or you have these kind of clans that you're a part of. And people tend to age out of that and they get kind of solitary or they focus more on family or smaller groups. It's cool that with motorcycling, you can have like a brotherhood if you need, or there's co-ed riding groups and stuff. I think that's what's really attractive to a lot of people about it, is that community aspect. Just like a really cool kind of bond you can have with people that you can be superficial with or you can be really deep with. It's part of being in an organization that kind of has a greater purpose or a kind of a mission. So it's cool to be a part of that. If you're not one for too much chit chat, motorcycling is super cool because, well, number one, you strap on your helmet and you're not talking to anybody unless you have one of those Bluetooth speakers. But for the most part, it's a solitary thing. It's just you and your head and the helmet. And even if you are doing a community thing with people, you can't really talk. And you are part of this big moving machine with many different parts. And there's a certain tacticalness you have to approach it with, a little bit of technicality. You're very present and focused. I talked about this a lot in my minimalism in motorcycling video, so you can refer back to that for a lot of these points about the kind of psychological, all the like really cool cerebral things about motorcycling. And I know like introverts eat that up. They love that kind of stuff. But it's cool. You can be on this bike and you can be surrounded by nature, or you can be exploring through the city, but it's such a cool, productive thing to do that doesn't involve you sitting staring at a screen or sitting over drinks or having a conversation. It's quality time, and it's this bonding time or a very solitary time, depending on what you want from it. If you're a bit of an introvert and want to be a part of a community but worry that things like that could be really taxing on you, motorcycling, I think, is perfect because you can get with people and then you get on the road and you're in your head, and it's a really great place to be. And then if you are one to be more conversational, you can regroup over things afterwards and talk about your experience. You can also trade off being a leader and being led. So depending on what your personality type is, you can explore a lot of really cool dynamics with a group of people by being part of a motorcycle riding group or just being part of a group ride. From a little bit more of a technical standpoint and less social environment and stuff, taking care of a motorcycle is a very immersive and methodical thing to do. And I think tons of people, especially introverts, like the solitary act of maintaining the motorcycle. If you're into being a bit of a tinkerer, or you like to learn about objects and learn about machines and how they operate, motorcycles are perfect for that. It's a technical thing that you can get nerdy about and you can experience, and there's just like always more to know. You can know about just the superficial aspects of it, or you can learn deep down into how engines work. It's kind of endlessly fun for that reason. No matter how you spin it, motorcycling is perfect for deep thought and meditation, whether you're riding it or you're maintaining it. We've all heard about the Zen motorcycle maintenance. It's a real thing. You can really get in touch with yourself, your priorities, just spend some quality alone time with you and your bike. So what do you guys think? Are there any other ways that motorcycling and introversion pair well together? We can always, of course, talk about how extroverts and motorcycles pair well together. How do you think that extroverts handle motorcycles differently, or what attracts them to it? Also, let me know if you like my super cool hoodie. It's, of course, one of my own designs. Through Great Lakes Supply Co., my company, I designed a series of Cafe Racer and naked bike inspired apparel. Yes, I'll take 100. This one has been a fan favorite lately. Everyone's been loving the hoodie. It's super soft. I'm wearing a men's medium right now, so I'm giving it a little bit more of a loose fit. But if you want something more fitted, it goes all the way down to extra small. Go ahead and check that out on my website, greatlakesupplyco.com. While you're at it, you might as well follow me on Instagram at starknaked and Great Lakes Supply Co. If you're interested in being pushed instantly when I upload, go ahead and click the bell notification to receive notifications. Like this while you're at it. Happy New Year, ride safe, and go naked. She did what? The new Yamaha?